placements. Nice. All right. Let's uh let's get logged on here, Jesse Broadwater, so I can see what sort of questions we can stump you with today.
Hurry up. I only got 5 minutes.
You only got 5 minutes until nothing to do. All right, let's see here. So we are going to, first of all, I appreciate you coming on today, Jesse. I know you have all kinds of other things you could be doing. However, all right, here, holy moly. All right, we're live. Let's see here. Let me click on this, get some folks on board.
I didn't get a chance to say I was doing this, so I don't know.
That's okay. Well, I think everyone's going to be all right. Folks are starting to load up on here. So, all right, everybody, grateful we were Bowjunky Media, bowjunkymedia.com. It's time for another live Q&A / podcast. Today's guest, of course, you can see on the screen if you're listening. You will be hearing that momentarily, but you guys know the drill. We got to pay the bills. Without the help of these companies right now, which, look, folks, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but just let me, if you think it's bad at your work and everywhere else in the country right now, it's just as bad or worse at archery companies. So if you are still shopping, if you are still, able to participate in the archery consumer side of things, I just really support the folks that make all of this possible, because not just the organizations, everybody. And I don't care what any of the gear is, but if we let archery fall off too far, it's going to be hard to come back from. So these companies right here are the ones that make everything that we do possible. Lots of them make things that Jesse does possible. Whether you shoot the product or not, it's not what I'm talking about. There are no one person shoots the products that make everything possible. They shoot theirs. And so, but without the help of all these companies, none of this would be possible. And for Bowjunky, that's AAE, Arizona Archery Enterprises, of course. Bam, right there. Whoops. Ow. That hurts right there. Oh, Jesse's wearing a hat. AAE, Cafaro International, PSE, Bomar Archery, Martin Archery, Easton Arrows, Gas Bowstrings, First Light Camo, Feather Vision Lenses, Black Rifle Coffee Company, Viking Tactics, and our friends over at Zeiss. So that's how that works. As you can see, today's guest is none other than longtime buddy, friend of the program, Jesse, the Freakshow Broadwater. What's going on, my man?
What's up? Not much. How you doing?
Oh, well, just sitting out here doing the thing. Just figured, as usual, folks, most of these come to fruition via text messages and trash talking, and so here we are, as usual. Jesse and I never talk trash, of course, but yeah, as he giggles. So, all right, Jesse, just real quick, let everybody know kind of what you've been doing to stay busy these days.
I mean, basically the same thing I do whenever I'm not traveling shooting. So I've been practicing and just family stuff, and now we're doing, pretty much homeschooling. So that's fun. Keeping the kids on track, and been working around the place here and doing some land clearing and stuff like that. You texted me a little bit ago. I was on the tractor and with head over heels on the old John Deere there. So yeah, just been staying busy around here and getting a lot of stuff done. But
Right.
still been trying to stay in shooting shape, and for whenever they let us out of the stable, I want to be ready. So
No doubt. So, at this point, there is, it's still undetermined, folks, what exactly we're going to get for a NFAA Indoor Nationals. But whether they do a satellite event, whether they do something September, October in Yankton, we don't know. But for now, obviously, Jesse is probably not dialed in for the indoor game. So what sort, right now it would basically be your known pro 3D rigs and your Redding style distance rigs, we'll call them. So what sort of rigs you got built up at the moment?
Well, the nice thing about how I've been doing things the past couple of years is I've been trying to just weed out variables and trying to stick with about the same type of setup. So um, right now I'm shooting pretty much the same rig minus the scope setup for everything. Same arrows, same bow, everything. And yeah, I mean, all I have to do is pop a different scope in there and a different set of sight marks, and I'm good to go. So I think that's one thing that's kind of, allowed me to focus more on myself the past couple of years rather than trying to tune different setups and, making sure I got 2 or 3 different setups going, one for field, 3D, indoor, all that.
Right.
I've literally been shooting like the same exact bow, not just the same, make and model, but the same bow for indoors, 3D, field, everything for the past couple of years. So, like I say, I'm glad that I'm able to do that because I can just spend more time practicing, making myself better than tweaking on stuff.
Absolutely. Now, historically, you have not necessarily been a bring an extra tuned bow dialed in kind of guy. Um, I've not seen. I mean, even when you would go overseas, way back, you might bring an extra bow, but at some point, I don't remember when in your history, but you pretty much just started showing up with one bow. And I've never really seen that be an issue for you per se, but kind of talk to folks, and look, folks, we're going to have a conversation, and Jesse's level's above my level. It's above most everybody's level. So, some of the things that he might say about why he doesn't bring an extra bow, if you're a regular archer and you have a backup bow and something goes wrong with your main bow during the shoot, you probably can go grab a backup and make that up. At Jesse's level, depending on what the depending on what the issue is, kind of explain everybody kind of why historically you transitioned over to just bringing one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just that. I mean, usually if something goes wrong, it's too late anyhow. And there's no room for error, very little room for error in our division. So if something goes wrong, literally as simple as a knocking point sliding a little bit, and you miss a 10 or an X or whatever. I mean, it's generally too far gone then. You know, Other than a catastrophic failure, limbs breaking or something like that, which I've never had. I mean, that would be the only time where you would, you know, pick up another bow and just want to finish the tournament or whatever. So, but it's the main reason is it's just generally too late if something like that happens, and you're just gonna take your licking and go back and lose that match or lose that tournament and go back and fix whatever you got to fix maybe that night in the hotel room and get it going for the next day and just try to finish out the tournament or whatever. So that's the main reason. I mean, obviously it's never a bad idea to come fully prepared, but even if you have another backup bow set up identical, I mean, there's still always that one bow that you shoot the most, and that's your number one bow. And a lot of times you'll pick up your backup bow and you might miss an X with the backup bow. So you're in the same boat there. It's too little, too late. So I mean
Absolutely.
that's the main reason. And if it comes down to it, generally, like if you're traveling on a USA archery team or whatever, and or any shoot really, if something catastrophic happens and you need a bow to finish the tournament, I don't want to rely on someone else to have a backup bow, but generally you could find a bow somewhere around that's close to the right draw length, or you can tweak it around and and make it work if you just want to finish the tournament, or if you're in a team event or whatever. Obviously you want to hold up your end of the deal, and if your bow is completely broken, you need to try to put something together for the team. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it there. That's my thinking anyhow.
Right. Well, I mean, and unless it was way back in the days when you and Shane Wills shot pretty much the exact same stuff, you guys could go back and forth. But I had asked you this I don't know, it had to be probably, it was a long time ago. And you had said something about this topic, and folks, be sure to like and share this live feed. I am going to start. I got the first question queued up here. We are going to start taking your questions live here in just 1 minute. But like and share this live feed so everybody can tune in. I'm also not seeing enough hearts and fingers, thumbs going up across the screen, so get to tapping. And basically, what you had said was about dividing time. That in the amount of time you have to practice or set up for a given tournament, dedicating that to the bow that you have the most confidence in was more important to you, rather than saying, okay, this number one bow is okay, now I need to go spend a bunch of time on my backup bow to make sure it's sort of okay. And so talk a little bit about that, not necessarily splitting the time equally, but mentally having to work on a backup bow does sort of distract you from the main bow.
Yeah, it does. And so, you get two different feels going on. And once again, archery is so much about how everything feels. And like I say, you can have two bows as identical as you can possibly make them. And there's still something going to feel different about them. And there's going to be something you like more about the one than the other. And so, when you're bouncing back and forth between them, sometimes the backup bow feels better, and that becomes your number one bow, and that's okay. But yeah, ultimately it comes down to which one feels the best, aims the best, and obviously shoots the best. So, I've kind of devoted my time, like you said, just to focusing on one bow, and if I can get that one bow, I mean, the things are built so good these days that you're not going to have anything go wrong. It's not like you're going to wear one out in a season, So.
Right.
If you get a good bow going where this bow aims good, it tunes good, it feels good. I mean, I would rather stick with that one bow and just swap sights around on it, or swap a rest around on it with different arrows or whatever, and stick with the same bow, same set of strings, same exact loop length, same exact peep height. Because there's like through the season. You kind of get those things dialed in and just, micro-tuned. And, you might bump a peep up or down here or there, or, play with your loop length a little bit throughout the season. And, by the end of the season or the middle of the season even, you got that thing dialed. And right. So I just feel like it's more important just to kind of become one with one bow rather than trying to get a bunch of different bows set up. And, like I said, that allows me more time to work on myself rather than that.
Right. Right. All right. So let's start taking some of these questions here. So for those of you that are relatively new to this, so basically here's what I'm going to do. Like, this first question is a good question, but we're not going to go into basically totals. Like, I'm not going to have Jesse go through his entire description on his entire rig, because there's going to be a lot of questions about certain facets of it. So I'll take the question, kind of, take the spirit of the question and let Jesse address things a little bit more in detail, so folks down the line don't necessarily have to ask the exact same thing. So question number one, Damien LaTourette. I don't know if I screwed that up or not. Sorry, Damien, if I did. He says, right, he says, just got a TRX 36. It's my first Matthews. Any tips or tricks on it, coming from years of Hoyts?
Well, that's right up my alley. So the biggest thing, I'll just go over the biggest differences that I personally saw coming from years and years of the Hoyt and switching to a completely different feel. The number one thing was the grip. But when I switched, the grip is a little bit different than they are now. Now it's not such a big change coming from a Hoyt. So that was probably what took the most getting used to. So, and that's a thing once again. But once you kind of get used to the grip, the rest of the bow is great. I mean, it's going to tune good. I've never had an issue with a Hoyt or a Matthews tuning. Never had an issue with limbs. Never had an issue with, having a wicked tear one way or the other that I couldn't get out. So the tuning part of it it's going to be there. So I would say it's just going to boil down to a feel thing. And so it is definitely a huge different feel. but once you get used to that, the cam system, depending on which cam you're shooting on the Hoyt, I would consider the TRX cam system to be kind of like in between the Spiral and not the GTX. I keep wanting to say GTX, but the Spiral cam and their other adjustable cam. I would put this cam like kind of in between those two. So string tension wise, draw curve, and everything like that. So the cam system's not too much you got to get used to. But I would say just the overall feel of the bow, the balance, and the grip. And so it's just going to take some time. And I think once you kind of, get used to the feel of it, you're going to find that it's an absolute. I mean, it'll put them in the same hole just like any other bow will. It's just you just got to get used to it. I guess
Sure.
that's the main thing.
Sure. So let me expand on this a little bit, because over the years, and in prior live feeds, there's been the discussion of where you put the D loop in relation to center of the string between axle to axle. I know on some of the Hoyts in past years, depending on geometries, we would run them sometimes above the hole. I know on the Vantage Elite Plus, I ran mine below. I think you ran yours, Hoyt, on the Vantage Elite Plus super low as well. But as it pertains to this particular bow, what would you tell him would be a good starting point on his D-loop location between the axles as measured?
So I would say start out with it like through the center of the rest holes, because the main difference you're gonna feel when you start moving the loop up and down is just the grip pressure in the palm of your hand. So the lower you put the loop on the string, the more that you're gonna feel pushing into the heel of your palm right there. So and that's gonna give it different aiming characteristics. So if you're a person that you like that pressure in the palm of your hand, you really like that pushing back on there, start with the loop a little bit lower through the center, or even a little bit below the hole, and try that. But if you find yourself, no matter what you do with loop length, peak height, and stabilizer setup, if you just find yourself like having these low shots and dips, I would say that that's a good indication that you want to move your loop up the string a little bit. And I've generally found throughout the years that has gotten rid of some of the low tendencies, as far as holding and aiming and the dip bangs and stuff like that. So I would say if you can shoot it, I would say, this has always been my theory, shoot it as low as you can. So if you can shoot it low without fletching contact and all that good stuff, and shoot it consistently without getting dip bangs or whatever like that, I feel that you're better off. Just because the arrow is closer to your hand, you're going to have less variance if you're canting the bow, especially if you're shooting out at distance and stuff. Because the higher you get that arrow above your hand, it's just kind of a fulcrum point there. So the more you cant the bow, a little bit more variance it's going to have and stuff. And some bows don't like it. The Matthews doesn't seem to care too much. I mean, I've ran it above the rest holes and never had any tuning issues, but some bows, once you get them up a little bit higher, they're going to start having some weird knock travel and stuff. So I would say keep it as low as you can, but without it, affecting your shot or the feel of the aim or the feel of the bow or anything negative.
Excellent. Yep, that's the exact thing. So Joey Caraway has a pretty interesting question here, and this might lead us into another non-tuning aspect of being a pro. Especially a pro like Jesse, but this is a great question. So Joey says, with most of the national tournaments getting canceled, how many of you pros are considering shooting more of the smaller shoots to stay sharp once we are out of this lockdown? One word redacted.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a good thing to consider. I mean, there's some people just aren't even having the small shoots going on. So, it's just been a lot of shooting here at home. Everyone does not want to travel and not allowed to travel, and the police are cracking down on you for traveling if you don't need to be and all that nonsense. So, obviously if you can do it and there's shoots around you, yeah, it's definitely a good thing to do. So I would say, I mean, when the tournament season is in full swing and it's a regular year, yeah, I don't have much time to shoot the smaller shoots. So this might be a great opportunity for people to do it. And it's not that I don't, obviously I want to support the local crowd and everything, but it's usually if I'm coming off a, heavy tournament season or whatever, in between the shoots is whenever like I want to really focus on working on improving whatever I need to for the next shoot. So, and obviously you can still do that at local shoots too. It's not like you can't do that, but a lot of times it's a little less distracting to do it at home rather than, going to a shoot and doing it. So.
Well, and we also know, Jesse, I mean, if Jesse Broadwater shows up to a local tournament, first of all, there's probably not going to be a class for you. And second of all, there's probably a fair amount of the other freestyle shooters that are going to not be super stoked about that. Let's just be honest here. Folks, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, and that has happened before, and like I'm happy-go-lucky. Like I'm just there to shoot with people to have a good time, and
right.
Obviously I love helping people, but sometimes if I got everything rolling and it's just a Sunday shoot or whatever, and I just want to go have a good time, yeah, it's fine. But there's certain times where a lot of us pros want to go to these smaller shoots and just to get a little bit of the extra pressure and to shoot around people and stuff like that, and it's hard sometimes with some of the distractions and stuff. But like I say, it's all part of it, and I guess in the long run that probably helps you. It's just
different.
Yeah, it's just different. You got distractions going on you got to deal with and stuff. So, I mean, I'm all about helping the local crowd, the local club, the local shop, stuff like that. It's just I feel like I don't do it enough, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just hard. It's like you say, with the full tournament season going, it's hard, and right now it's hard. There's not too much going on.
Right. Exactly.
Around here, so around anywhere, so.
Right. All right. Brian Keene says, how much pin movement is too much in your opinion?
That's kind of a tough one there. I mean, I guess there's a point to where it could be too much, but I don't want to, and I watched Levi's thing the other night there, and, his thing about target panic and stuff like that, and he's right. There's no one on this planet that holds still. Everyone moves. Everyone's human. It's just how well you deal with and how you cope with that movement and how you focus through it, and that's the main thing. Having all of your other things on point, your form and your follow through and your focus is more important than trying to get the pin to hold, exactly still. I mean, this is probably going to blow a lot of people's minds, but I would rather have a bow that is more busy on the shot than one that comes down and just sits there. I mean, if this bow right here was a bow that just come down and locked on the middle, I would not shoot it as well as the way I shoot it right now. And that's one reason why I run my setups a little bit lighter. Is I like to have a little bit of pin movement. And, I try to tell that to people all the time. They're so concerned about, I can't get this bow to sit still. How am I going to shoot good if the bow won't sit still? Well, you can. I mean, it's all about your shot and your focus, and it's all about kind of where you're directing your focus and everything. If your full focus is, on what you want to hit and, feeling the right pressures and going through your shot and everything and focusing on your follow through and repetition and doing the same thing time and time, the bow does not have to sit still. It's going to be moving no matter what. So I like my bows to move a little bit. I like them to be a little bit, busy and flighty, and that kind of keeps me more active. If I have a bow that comes down and just sits still, I'll kind of get lazy on the shot, and there'll be times to where I want to try to do something to make the shot happen because it's sitting still, so I got to make it go. I would rather just have it be kind of busy the whole time, and me just focusing through that and focusing on applying the right pressures and breaking through it cleanly. So
sure. Do you have a 5-spot or a Vegas target handy right now, Jesse?
I have a Vegas target.
Grab one real quick. We're gonna make Jesse kind of define what his definition of busy looks like. Because I know what my definition of busy looks like, and I'm sure it's not Jesse's. However, busy is he knows exactly where I'm going with this. Yep. Late. What's your temp?
4.6.
Yep. See, you don't have a pulse. All right. So
right.
here's kind of where this is going. So as best you can, and look, folks, I can just indoors. Jesse shoots like a 180 thou or so.
Yeah.
So, but just kind of illustrate to people, if you were to be shooting a fiber this size, because you shoot one for outdoors, which is fine, just kind of illustrate with your laser there for people to understand what you mean when you say busy.
So it looks a little bit something like this. Where's it at? No, I'm just kidding. So like at 20 yards, all these slits, like.
Okay, we can't see anything, so you're gonna have to do it on the gray.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Just do it on the gray. It's fine. Yep, there you go.
All right. So it would be like.
All right.
Something like that. Now, when I try to run like a heavier stabilizer setup, obviously it'll come down and it'll be more of like a slower movement and stuff like that. But I would rather have the lighter feel. It's just, to me, a lighter bow is more manageable. I can shoot it longer. I don't break down with it. I always have this fear of breaking down. Like I tried heavier setups this year, and shot some great rounds with them, but I eventually broke down and had some big misses. So with a lighter setup, busier, I'm okay with that, and I can shoot it more consistently, and I can shoot it longer. And I never break down with it, and I don't get those big misses like that. So yeah, and it's like, I don't know. So like.
There we go.
Yeah, so like, now obviously my dot covers. Show you what my dot covers.
All right, here we go. Jesse's purpurred.
So
kind of.
My dot indoors pretty much covers that right there.
Yeah, we're good. Stay in the lines, Broadwater. All right.
So that's about how much my indoor setup dot covers. So
wow.
All I have to do, I just use like a centering technique. So I just want to see a little halo of yellow around that, and that's basically what I do. And another reason why I shoot a big dot like as I never see arrow holes. So if I get a bad hole going or whatever, I don't see that. So I'm always seeing the same sight picture. But yeah, I can generally, stay within a 10 ring, but I like it to be a little bit busier.
There you go. All right, that was a good illustration there. Your drawing arts are good. So all right, Trevor Hayer says, Jesse, do you find that the disadvantage of shooting micro diameters is neutralized by a lower chance of glance outs being able to skip into crowded 12s?
I see no disadvantage from shooting little arrows. I only see advantages from shooting little arrows in 3D. And I've proved it to myself, time and time again. And I think I'm the only arrow I might venture to try would be like the new Super Drive 19. Like I might go that big if I can get them to shoot good and get some good point weight on them and stuff like that. I would maybe go with that diameter, but I'm telling you, the main thing is having confidence in your arrow setup, no matter what size it is. If you're shooting an arrow that you're just not quite sure that it's going to hit behind the pin, it's just a confidence thing. I don't think you're ever going to shoot it as well. But I have total confidence in these X10s that the Pro Tours that they hit behind the pin time and time again. And then, if there's a crowded 12 ring, I'm not afraid to aim at it. The only thing you can't do is play defense very well, but I'm not, I don't care about that anyhow. So
right.
Whether it's a close target, sometimes they'll throw a 20-yard target there, and if you're the last man up, You know, I've seen plenty of glance outs happen like that with bigger arrows. So I see no disadvantage to shooting a little arrow. You know, they're better in the wind. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm crazy, but I sure do see a lot more bigger arrows out there than the small ones. But you're starting to see some more smaller arrows now, and I kind of heard the same thing from that. Piggy, you're late. Quit squealing.
Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Time out. Did you just tell your pig to be quiet?
Yes, pig.
Oh my God.
He's in the cage here, and he already ate. His gut's like this big, and now he wants to eat again, and you're not eating. No.
Oh my Lord. All right. So speaking of, I see a big arrow on the husky there behind you. What is that?
That was the arrow. That's my indoor arrow. My one I shot in Vegas and stuff. So that's
All right. Well,
it's a Super Drive 27. Basically, is what it is. It's an old full bore, but the same thing as a Super Drive.
All right. What sort of point weight you running in that? Is that the 100 grain Donnie Thacker special?
It's 150.
150.
Yep, 150 grain point, 3-inch vanes. Got a little short micro knock in there, and they're 29.5-inch carbon to carbon.
How much twist you got on them bad boys?
Yeah, what's that?
How much twist you got on them vanes?
Not very much. I just shoot like
okay.
You know, a few degree offset.
Right.
I don't get too crazy with it. I mean, with the heavier point weight and stuff, sometimes that is one thing I will do. So I had these set up with 250 grain points, and they shot better with the 4-inch vanes than they did with these ones.
Right.
So I think, the heavier you go with your point weight, a little bit more steering in the back. I think they kind of have a correlation there. So that is one thing I play with. But with these, this is like a lighter setup than I usually run inside. With my 2712s, I run them at 225 grain point, and they're like 31.5 inches with a 4-inch vane, and they're super heavy, But these right here, they come out of the bow fast, and they're forgiving. So I found that these work good, and then these at 31 inches with 250 in the 4-inch vane shot good too. Anything in between there didn't seem to shoot very good.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. Well, hey, it's everything that works. So, all right, Daniel Liss says, speaking of things going haywire or catastrophic failures, how do you mentally get over that to continue performing at your best?
Well, I would say it's the same thing as like shaking off a bad shot. I mean, what are you gonna do about it? It's done and over with. I mean, you can sit there and dwell on it, but that's just gonna make your future worse. You know what I mean? So
right.
You might as well try. Might as well try to make the best of it. I don't know if he's specifically talking about like how to come back from equipment failure, or if he's like comparing it to like a bad shot or just a bad performance. But
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, I just kind of correlate it to like a bad shot in a tournament. Even if it's Vegas and it's the first day, you miss one on the second end, you still have to put it behind you, as hard as that is. I mean, you practice for hours and hours and months and tens of thousands of arrows, and you're done in 15 shots. That's a hard pill to swallow, but what are you going to do? You might as well make the best of it. It's like same thing in life, life throws you curveballs all the time. You can sit around and dwell on it, but what's that going to do?
Right.
So you might as well try to make a lesson out of it, or try to learn something from it, and that way you'll move on and do better than that next time. So
absolutely,
that's kind of how I handle that. It's a tough thing, and that's just where discipline comes in. I mean, it's just a discipline thing, I guess.
You bet. Well, and look, man, let's just be honest here. There's certain personality types that historically have just done better in events like archery. It's just how it works. So I mean, some folks are just,
it does. So, like, I find it interesting that like some of the beginners and stuff that I'll get into shooting, you can usually tell like within the first 5 shots, like just with their personality and like how quick they're going to advance and what problems they're going to have and stuff. If they're, it is a personality thing sometimes. So that is
Absolutely.
pretty interesting to see. Some people just have a better demeanor about themselves and a better personality that's going to contribute to making archery a little bit easier for them.
No question. Scott Johnson says, what are the positive attributes about the Freakshow arrow rest?
Well, there are many. Let me show you. So this is the new QD rest. So I guess the whole idea behind, having an overdraw rest is so you can torque tune it. If you guys don't know what torque tuning is, you can ask and I'll tell you. But first of all, it's a solid platform. So this new QD Freakshow is a rest that it's a quick detach, so you can take it on and off bows. And all you have to do is have this little bracket on each of your bows, and you can take this rest off, pop it on another bow. You can have 2 different rests set up for 2 different arrows, have them both tuned properly, swap them on the same bow. But this rest allows you all kinds of adjustments for torque tuning. So you can move the bracket forward and backward, and with this new blade design, hang on.
You're going to kill somebody over there.
You ever try to travel or get on a bus with these things and a quiver and stabilizers hanging off of them everywhere? It's almost impossible. So we got the new sling blade attachment. So we always had the Freakshow, but there was one problem, like on the Hoyt bows with the tech riser. There was like a dead spot there where you couldn't get if you was trying to torque tune. You either had to go with the long bracket and put it back behind the tech part of the riser, or get the short one and put it in front of there. And there was like a 3/4 or half-inch spot in there where you couldn't get. With this new blade design here, the sling blade, it allows you to slide this blade holder back and forth also and get in that dead spot there. So it's just a solid rest. I mean, there's everything about it's solid. The way the blades are designed, it has, I think it's a hexagon. Is it a hexagon?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have a raised hexagon part sticking up out of the body of the blade holder here, and then a hexagon that's wire EDM, I believe, cut in the actual spring steel, and it like fits perfect on there. So if you happen to bend or break a blade, you can generally pop one on there, and it's going to be really, really close to hitting the same. So the way that the blade fits on there, the way the adjustments are, all you got to do is loosen a screw, and it's fine adjustments. You can look at your laser etchings and use your fine adjustments there. So I mean, there's not too much more you'd really want in a rest. I mean, as far as a blade rest, like I say, you can get everywhere you need to get with the torque tune. We still sell it in the long mount. This is a standard mount, so we still sell the long mount too if you still feel like you need to get back farther. I'm running mine pretty far up on my TRX 36 here.
Yeah, you are.
It's I have the body all the way as far forward as it'll go, and my blade holder is as far forward as it'll go, and it torque tunes there, with these X10s and stuff, where I have my sight length set up. So
Perfect.
It's just a solid rest all around. I mean, there's every adjustment on there. You can adjust the blade angle.
What blade angle are you running on that? From the factory, just for you wondering, if you set everything level on the Freakshow and then you set the sling blade level to the bar on the Freakshow, from the factory, it's a engineered 38 degrees. Do you change that at all, Jesse, or I mean, is that where you like yours?
Well, I generally start with it level because OCD. So I have mine pretty much set level right there now, and that it's for my OCD. And if you have to move the blade holder forward and backward on the sling blade, you're not going to get any elevation changes. I guess I'll mention a quick little tip here for if you have to, like, say you want to shoot a different angle on this sling blade. Say you want to have this part. I don't know if you can see that. Hang on.
Yep.
So if you want to shoot this, this a different angle on there, and you want to have the sling blade part angled up a little bit more. Obviously, if you're going to be making adjustments, if you run out of adjustment on the actual bracket of the rest or whatever, and you just can't get it where it needs to be, and you just need to move this piece, there's a way you can easily measure what your knocking point height basically is, and that way when you move that, you can go ahead and drop the rest down, the body of the rest down or up, and keep that the same. So basically all you do is put one arrow on the string, and then put one on the shelf of your bow like this. And you'll just kind of hold that on there, and then you can measure at whatever point you want. Pick a point and measure the gap on that arrow right there. And then when you move it, when you move that blade holder piece, you can just move it back down to that same measurement, and that'll keep you your exact same knocking point that you have. So it's also just a quick way to get your initial knocking point or whatever. Just pop an arrow. Most risers on this shelf right here are machine flat, so put an arrow on there. Obviously, this is a Pro Tour, so it's got a little taper to it, so it's not, it's not running exactly parallel. But if I was to flip it around and use a bear shaft or whatever on the back, it'd be true. So you can get your knocking point pretty quick by doing that, and then also your center shot. Put it on like the inside of your riser. You just pop an arrow and hold it against the inside of your shelf. I don't know how well you can see that, but you probably get
good.
The point.
It's good.
So that's a quick way to get your center shot and knocking point. So you just kind of match up the arrow that's on there. And
so looking at your initial arrow on the shelf deal there, it looks like you're just a tiny bit knock high on your tune. Is that correct?
Well, it is a little knock high, but it's also a little bit of blade sag going on just at rest.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just observing.
Yeah, but it is a little bit knock high. So I've been running this bow groups better out at a distance with just a little bit knock high, it seems like.
How high?
Well, I don't know.
I know you got a bow square up in that joint, Broadwater.
I do, but it doesn't work right with this serving. It's, to be honest, I don't use a bow square.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean? Set it up initially, and then you just kind of fudge stuff around and get it where it groups good.
I totally get it. All right. No, that was great. The Freakshow QD is an unbelievable rest. It's based off of AAE's Bulletproof Pro. There you go.
So you can see it has grooves cut in there that line up with the teeth on the mount that goes on the bow. So this was actually the rest that I had in Vegas when we done like a $10,000 a day shoot off. So I had a rest set up for my big arrows that I shot during the regular tournament, and then threw this one on there and zero sight. I had another sight with me. Popped that sight on. Didn't have to make any sight adjustments or anything, and it's nice to have a backup too. So
right, absolutely. All right, Robert Leitonen, maybe. Do you blank bail now? Do you blank bail now and then for practice?
I don't really blank bail a whole lot. The only time that I'll blank bail is when it's generally on a normal year, like in the fall. When I usually take a little break in the fall, and when I first start getting back into setting up an indoor bow and stuff like that, usually like the first 2-3 days, maybe even a week, I will just to try to get back into the feel of things before I even start working on the bow, I'll just run some arrows through the bow at a blank bail. And I usually don't shoot a blank bail too much other than that. Besides if when I used to shoot a lot of the 50-meter stuff, and shooting in the wind and stuff like that, which I'm working on a video right now just about some wind shooting, and I cover some of this in there. But I shoot a little bit of a different shot and a little bit of a different setup in the wind. And, you know, if I shoot in a tournament and it's just windy the whole time, sometimes I'll come back home and run some blank bale through before I go back out, you know, and start shooting again. And it's just because I changed my shot timing a little bit, and I want to try to get back to that, you know, the shot timing that I'm used to shooting, you know, in calm weather. So,
Right.
you know, other than that, and I guess I would shoot more blank bailing if I didn't have a place to shoot, you know, more distance. So if
Right.
that's all you got, then obviously, yeah, that's a great thing to do.
Absolutely. All right. Coco Fernandez. This one's right up your alley. I can tell. Quick story. I remember I was talking to Dave Cousins. This might have been like 2005. It was way back. And Jesse, with his braces, comes walking by with Shane, and he goes walking by, and Dave Cousins said, "That is the sickest archer with a 2-finger pick the sport's ever seen." And by a 2-finger pick, he means the whole 2-finger claw hinge that Jesse used to shoot that was so damn hot I couldn't even try it. My fat fingers, literally, I couldn't even draw it. It would just go off. So Coco Fernandez says, "Hi, Jesse. I'm a hinge shooter that tried 4, 3, and 2 fingers. I noticed that you went from 3 fingers to 2 fingers and now back to 3. Can you please tell us why you went back to 3, since you don't activate it with your fingers but with relaxing your palm? Thanks."
Yeah, so I switched back to, so let's start at the beginning here. I started out shooting.
Not 2005.
No, this was like 95. So I started out, actually my very first release was a hot shot. It was a ring finger activated, old hot shot. And then I shot that for like a year with my first compound bow. And then when we joined the Cumberland Bow Hunters, the club we joined, a bunch of target shooters in there, everyone was shooting a 2-finger stand. So obviously I started shooting a 2-finger stand at a very young age. And so that's all I shot pretty much, you know, up until like not long ago. And the only reason I kind of went away from it was after a while, I found it, like, especially outside shooting when it's hot and sweaty and stuff, I had to rely so much on the release sliding to the same spot in my finger each time. And if it wouldn't slide to the same spot, or, you know, settle in the same spot each time, my shot timing would be different. So it was kind of one of those things that just became annoying after a while. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try something different. So I switched to a 3-finger, but I couldn't just switch to a 3-finger without going to a click, because I lost because when I shot a 2-finger, I always shot, where's my release? So when I shot a 2-finger, I always shot the head, like my starting point was the head all the way back against the stock. And so that gave me a consistent starting point. But when I started, you know, when you start adding fingers onto the release, you kind of lose that. And, you know, so the head will not always want to be against the stock. So you kind of lose that consistent starting point. So then I had to, you know, I figured it was better to go to a click, and then I would just kind of draw back, relax into the click, and then start from there. So
Hold up one second. Jess, hold on 1 minute. I hope you all listened to what Jesse just said right there. When I did a live Q&A with Levi Morgan the other day, someone asked him a similar question about a click. What you heard Levi say the other day and what you just heard Jesse say about shooting with a click was identical. It was literally the exact same thing. So I just want to point that out to you folks. Sorry to interrupt, Jesse, but I just wanted to, so everybody could realize that when you start talking about a click, you know, some people get intimidated by it and it makes them jump. But Levi and Jesse literally just said the exact same thing when it comes to shooting with a click. So Jesse, I just want you to back up about 10 seconds and repeat what you said on basically when your release clicks.
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, when I switched to, you know, started adding a finger on top of there, I gained leverage, and then I lost my consistent starting point. So I just kind of set the release with a click to where when I drew back, I would, you know, come to anchor and then just relax into the click, and it would click, and then I would kind of just, that's kind of where my starting point is. You know, that's where it is now. So that is, so I guess I kind of done it to be more consistent, mainly. You know, when I was shooting with a two finger, you know, and I would get a wicked callus build up on this hand too, that I kind of had to like keep clip down and everything, you know, because once the callus got bigger, like it would hang up in a different spot. And so I was like putting Poole chalk on my finger, and I was putting this non-sweat stuff on there, and it was just like, it was so, I just had to watch it so much. It wasn't so bad indoors, but when I went outside, it just became a problem. So I'm like, I just got tired of it, and I'm like, I'm going to try a three finger. So it was kind of like a control thing. I feel like I have a little bit more control. And so I went to that and been shooting it for a while, but I don't know, a couple of years ago, I switched back to a two finger when I was shooting outside and shooting distance, and man, it just felt so good. I'm like, man, I kind of miss this. And my alignment just felt so good. I could really, you know, just break through my shot, like felt like cleaner and more straight through my shot. So that's when I just kind of got back on the two finger train. And but I still shot it with a click, you know, just because I was kind of used to it. But now this year, I kind of switched back to a three finger, and because the cams on the new Matthews, I kind of have to put a little bit more pressure into them to shoot them more consistently, and I just felt like I wasn't able to relax enough shooting a two finger. I felt like, you know, I have to kind of pull a little bit of tension against the back wall with the new cam system, and it wasn't allowing me to kind of do the same shot that I'm used to, which is like just being really relaxed. So I thought, well, I'll throw another finger on there, and, you know, maybe that'll help me, you know, stay back against that wall, but still allow me to stay relaxed. And so that's kind of why I switched back to a three finger now. So
there you go. So hold that release up to the camera again there. You had held it up there, and so spin it around. Okay, so for those of you looking, just because I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up, not that everybody in the world hasn't seen one, however, that is the Fulcrum. That is Jesse's signature release from True Ball XL, and specifically to the head, because we're talking about leverages, we're talking about, you know, literal fulcrums with the finger, and you were talking about when you shot two, you literally would start against the back of the moon as your starting point every time. But for those of you looking, I'm pointing as though I can point right to them. You can see that there's little holes right there. So I just want you to take a quick minute and explain what those features are about, and basically what happens when you start to move that around the hole.
yeah, so, you know, going back to when we kind of designed these, so I wanted to have a hinge and a button release that was exactly the same handle. So, you know, there's always people that wanted to have a hinge and a button feel exactly the same and hit the same and everything. So that's kind of, you know, why we come out with these. So, but the way this head moves around here, it's all a leverage thing. So we call it the lever alignment system, a LAS system. So depending on where the head is in relation to the handle, it applies different forces to your, distributes the load differently across your fingers, I guess is the best way to put it. That's one thing it does. Another thing it does is it also allows you to, if you're a person with a lot of string contact, face contact with your string, if you move this release, or the head of this release, more over top your index finger, it's going to allow you to have that same anchor point, but it's going to get your string a little bit lighter on your face. Another thing it does is it changes the way the force that's required to fire the release. So if you move the head of the release farther, like closer to your middle finger and your ring finger, it requires more pressure to fire it, but it also takes load off of your index finger. So, and vice versa. If you move it over top your index finger, you're going to feel more load on your index finger, but it's going to be easier to fire. So it just distributes the load a little bit differently and helps people with face contact issues and stuff like that. So.
All right, so let's say right now you have that timed for you perfectly where the head is. if you were to take that head and adjust it all the way forward over your index finger, how would you have to adjust the timing in order to not in order to not either one, it not go off, or two, it go off before you were ready?
Yeah, so right now I have it set in the, and this is where they come standard, and this is where kind of like on average most releases pull from right here. So I have it one set of holes counterclockwise, looking at it from this way. Now if I was to move it all the way over top of my index finger, like I said, it's going to put a lot more load on your first finger. It's gonna really be, you're going to notice it really wanting to roll easily and fire the release easily. But I believe I would have to speed the release up. I think when you move it over top of your index finger, this way you have to speed the release up, but it's going to be easier to fire, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and then
Absolutely.
Vice versa. If I move it this way, I can load up on my second and third finger more, moving it this way. So it takes a little bit more pressure to fire the release too, and I kind of like that because I can get into it a little bit deeper and really let it stretch out and relax into it. So. And then
the third finger there is adjustable. So,
yep.
How do you manipulate that third finger to, basically help you increase or decrease that finger tension during the shot?
Yeah, so it's like these releases are very adjustable, and so this is another thing. So you can use this finger sweep in correlation with the actual setting of the release and the head position. So, like, say if I was to move this head all the way towards my middle finger right there, it's gonna put more load and stuff on my second and third finger. I might want to take this ring finger and swing it back a little bit. So it really depends on what kind of pressures you like to feel in your hand. But it's another way to kind of fine tune the speed of it. So if you are hanging up on the shot a little bit or whatever, you can adjust the release and make it faster, or you can take this, sweep of this release and move it up a little bit, make it flatter, and it's just going to put a little bit more leverage on there. It might help you get through the shot better. People with different length fingers, you know what I mean? They might like the feel of this swept back all the way. I like to get it to where, like my whole shot is, once again, like based around relaxing. So I like to get everything set to where when I draw back, come into my peep and anchor and look at the target, the release clicks without me having to do anything. Just with a natural relaxing into the shot, I'll kind of drop my thumb off the peg and let my hand flatten out and let it pull out. Like it can't go any farther than that. I mean, if I did, like I said, I always use the analogy of hanging on a monkey bar. Like, so you're hanging on a monkey bar, you can keep your wrists and everything relaxed, but you still have to kind of keep your fingers hooked to hang on there, and that's kind of what I do. I don't like to get my fingers or my hand like this and create tension in my wrist. I like to just kind of let it come out. I mean, it's kind of that motion right there. So I like to have everything, all the adjustments set in the release to where when I come back and I hit that spot, it goes into the click, and then once you hit that click, you don't have to do much else for it to fire, and then I just can focus on aiming and just focus on staying relaxed, and it'll fire.
Nice. All right, so this next question is going to be a lot more intuitive for Jesse than a lot of folks might remember. But if you remember back several years ago, Jesse used to shoot with a pretty decently bent front arm. Really no reason to argue whether that form was successful for him or not, because obviously it was. But now, if you watch Jesse shoot, he has a little bit more of a straight arm. So Kevin Heyman asks, what's your opinion on shooting your bow arm locked out or not?
Well, I can only really speak from personal experience and then how I kind of like to get people going and set up. So my general rule of thumb is if I'm taking a beginner or whatever and setting them up, I don't want to have them shooting a completely extended locked arm and I don't set them up like I used to shoot with a bent arm. I'll kind of just I'll want to set them up to where string touches their nose, and they have just a little break in their arm. Not straight, but I'll adjust their draw length to where they keep all this in the right spot, but they get a little break in their arm and they're not, having to fight it or anything. Now there's a lot of people out there like Steve Anderson. He shoots like a hyperextended arm. Like Erica used to shoot with a hyperextended elbow and stuff like that.
Paige.
Yep, Paige. Yep. So I can speak from like personal experience. Like I used to shoot with a pretty good bent arm, and I recently, within the past few years, kind of lengthened that out and went a little bit straighter. Now the reason why I done it was I felt like it got rid of my dip bang shots, and it wasn't just because I just straightened my front arm. I'm doing something different now with my whole shoulder. So like I used to shoot basically like, I don't know if you can see it, but kind of like this. And now I'm shooting more like with my shoulder down and more locked in like this. So that was the biggest thing that I changed, was my shoulder alignment part right there. And I felt like that got rid of some of the dip bang shots that I was getting. So, like I say, 99% of the time, like, people do the best if you take them out to where they're fully extended and then just shorten them up a little bit and just get a little break in their arm. And that's the way we used to have an archery shop, and you see people come in. You see all kinds of things in an archery shop. Like people come in there, a guy my size shooting a 31.5-inch draw length, and it's like, man, and you shorten them up, 2.5, 3 inches or whatever, and they see how much better they shoot and stuff. So we always, try to take them to where they just got a little break in their arm and all this back here is fitting right. So I would say it's just a feel thing. Once again, obviously, it just comes down to what you can do the best and the most consistent.
There you have it. All right, Carter Carpenter, how much weight are you holding on your back wall?
With like a last chance scale, like just bumping back against the wall, about 19 pounds.
Okay, 19's pretty good. All right, Chuck Wolf, this could be a pretty good little rabbit hole here for Jesse. So Chuck Wolf says, when you were coming up through the ranks of archery, what was the main thing that made you turn pro?
Well, I mean, I got my first full-blown target rig. So maybe we can back up. I don't know if we want to start the beginning here. So I started shooting when I was 6, got a compound bow when I was like 7, joined a good club when I was like 8, and started competing when I was 9 with the full-blown target rig. I get into archery to bow hunt with my dad. He was a bow hunter, and I wanted nothing more than to just bow hunt. Didn't even know target archery existed until we joined the Cumberland Bow Hunters Club. When we joined that club, everyone was already traveling around shooting, doing tournaments and stuff like that. So, shot Friday night leagues and really got into it as a family, and just kind of jumped in with that gang and started traveling around shooting and stuff. And so, at 9 years old, I was going around shooting national tournaments and region, like shooting everything. And it just became a habit and something we'd done as a family. And, everyone in that club was going around shooting all these events, and we just kept doing it year after year. And so, I mean, I'd done it, when I turned 18, I had already had some help with sponsors and stuff like that, and been doing pretty well in the tournament scene. And I'm like, well, I might as well give it a go. So, I was 18 years old and couldn't see myself, just getting a regular job and completely, just pushing archery to the side. I thought I might as well give it a go and, see what happens. So, at that time it just seemed like the right choice, the only choice to make, really.
And now you never shot adult amateur, correct?
No. No,
Yeah,
I never did.
Yeah. So look, this is something that I tell people all the time because I get, parents and folks asking me, about their little, their daughters or their sons or, and look, every parent wants their kid to be the next Jesse Broadwater or Levi Morgan. But and that's great. And that's not to say that they can't do it, but there is a different level for these guys. Like for Levi, I believe Levi was 11 years old when he shot his first 60X at 20 yards on a 5 spot. Jesse was how old when you shot your first 560 on a field round?
Uh, Man, as an adult or a cub?
Kid. No, at
Uh,
how
I was 10.
exactly. So Jesse Broadwater shot his first ever 560 at 10, and Levi Morgan shot his first ever 60X on a 5 spot at 20 yards at 11. So absolutely great. Absolutely keep pushing your kids, but trying to compare your kid to a Levi Morgan or a Jesse Broadwater might want to pump the brakes a little bit on that, because they are rare in our sport for a reason, and it's pretty obvious at a very young age that they were different. So push your kid to be the best they can be, not necessarily push them to, be a Levi Morgan or a Jesse Broadwater, because I guarantee you, if Jesse Broadwater's son wants to play basketball at 9 years old, he's not going to be, next Michael Jordan. It's not necessarily how that works. So push them to be the best they can be, and if they get to that point, great. Alexander Tuttle asks, what is your process for optimizing your draw length?
That's a good question. So I've kind of changed that up the past couple of years with the addition of the sweet spot. So it used to be a lot more trial and error, just shooting day after day and really micro tuning, twist in the string, twist out of the string, cables, whatnot, and just shooting and keeping an eye on how I was aiming, how my follow through was, and how my scores were. I've been using a sweet spot to do it, and it's just it's made it a lot easier because I wouldn't say it made it easier, but it kind of did. But it gave me confirmation that I was doing the right thing because I can look at the consistency of my pressures and everything, and every time it has correlated with, better scores that I've been shooting, and the better feel and everything that I've had out of it. Every time that I've got the draw length where I think it needs to be, even without looking at the lights on the sweet spot or whatever, but I'll go after I make the changes, I'll pull up all the graphs and review them. And every single time where I thought that it felt the best and where I shot the best, the graph was the most consistent. So, it has been a pretty useful tool in that area. But, without it, like I say, it's, there's a general way that or a general starting point for your draw length. But then after that, it's so personalized. Like you have to just kind of play around with it yourself and shoot and see what you can shoot the best with and be the most consistent with. So, there's no true cookie cutter form that you have to follow, and there's some people that shoot better with the string off to the side of their nose, some at the tip of their nose, some like Shane Wills that the string's out here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Some people shoot better with a straight arm. Some people it's the same thing like with a lot of things in archery. It's a lot of trial and error, and you have to just kind of, there's obviously a general starting point with a lot of things, but after that it's so personalized that you have to do a lot of trial and error and put a lot of time into it and play with different things here and there and see what you're going to do the best, but do it in a smart way. Don't just feel like, don't make a half-inch draw length change and shoot it for 20 shots and be like, that's terrible. Like actually commit to it and shoot it for a few days, shoot it for a week, and really track your scores, and not only track your scores, but track how he was feeling that day, and track, if you need to just chalk it up as a bad day or whatever, actually commit to the changes that you make put a lot of time, into it and keep good notes. And, after you're going to find a spot in there where you're consistent if you do it in a smart way. If you just start wrenching around with stuff and, by the end of 3 weeks, you have no idea still where to be, well,
Right.
that wasn't a very smart way to do it. So
Or what
there's got
helped.
to be a process to it.
Yeah, or what helped. You have no idea what helped if you're changing all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So Christopher Perkins says, "Where's that target at, son?"
Man, so yeah, trust me, I feel the pressure on me. I feel the pressure. Literally, it has been, this is why I started filming a wind video today. It has been like 20 to 25 mile an hour gusts here every time except nighttime, which I may have to just set up a spotlight and do this thing at nighttime.
Okay.
So I didn't have a 5-spot target at first. I had to order some 5-spot targets, and I'm like, all right, so got them, and I'm like, well, I'm waiting on the wind to calm down. Every morning I wake up like sun just coming up. I'm like, this is the best time to look out. Blowing, middle of the day, blowing. So it was calm out there this evening, like as the sun was going down. So I might just have to do it at nighttime. But
there you go.
It's coming. I feel the pressure.
All right. Couple more questions. We'll let you go. Chester Akers. This is a good question. Chester Akers says, do you have any difficulty going from the big blob dot you shoot indoors to what you shoot outdoors?
No, because I try to keep the same sight picture. Like, obviously, it's like if you shoot in field archery, you have different size dots for different size distances, and it's not going to be like the exact same sight picture in every scenario, but it's going to be pretty close. So I found that .62 diopter, which is like 5 power, with a 60,000 scribe and a 19,000 drilled lens, the DSA lens, keeps me in a general realm of the same sight picture that I kind of see with my indoor setup. So I'm kind of filling up, more of the dot no matter which distance I'm at. It's a little bit smaller, and I like it just a little bit smaller outside just because I feel like if it's a little bit windy and stuff, I can, be a little bit more precise with where I need to hold off and stuff like that. But I will kind of hit on this quick, though. I feel like sight picture and having the right sight picture is very important. Like, I went out there just the other day and tried to shoot a 50-meter round, which I haven't done for a while, and I tried to do it with that DSA lens I just mentioned, and I was not shooting the way I thought I should have been. And I was like trying to think back of what lens I used to shoot at that, and so I pulled an old lens out, and I don't know what size dot it is, but it was bigger, and it basically mimics my indoor setup. So I'm aiming at the 50-meter dot, the 80 centimeter, but the yellow, you got the 10 ring, but the 9 is yellow, and so that dot in that lens pretty much filled up that whole yellow to where it looked like I was just standing at 20 yards shooting, and my groups tightened up considerably with that. So I will say that sight picture is like very, very important because, and it just has to do with how your mind, how you deal with, like what your mind sees and everything, and what you can be more relaxed with, and it's all like a perceptive type thing, I guess.
Sure, absolutely. Eric Jarrett says, do you feel limb stops or string stops are better for competitive shooting?
I haven't played around with limb stops very much, but personally, I would lean towards string stops, shooting the way that I shoot. Like I say, I can't give personal experience because I have not shot limb stops other than just on other people's bows, but I like to have a little bit of give on the back end. I like to get back, and if I want to get into it a little bit, because generally how I shoot, I'll come back and I'll kind of load into the wall a little bit, and then I'll just kind of let it relax a little bit. But as I'm kind of relaxing, I'm taking up a little bit of slack, and I don't like to have a real solid wall there. I feel like then my sight picture, even though I like a busy sight picture, I feel like if I have a real solid wall in the back, I'll get these big herky-jerky movements rather than just a busy, steady, consistent sight picture. So me personally, I would say right now a string stop.
All right. Dylan Wiley says, in K50 or K Pro class, are you more concerned with the arrow shooting its max allowed feet per second, or comfortable, accurate setup with slower feet per second?
I think having your sight marks dialed exactly is very important. And I don't. I mean, I guess I guess speed kind of plays a role a little bit. Like obviously, if you go out there with a 180 foot per second bow, you know,
Right.
even though you have a lot of confidence in it and it might shoot good on a dead calm day, you're gonna have the wind to deal with and just trajectory and stuff like that, and land sounds are gonna be worse. But I like to stay within like and at my draw length, I'm kind of limited. I shoot like a 28.5-inch draw. I like to stay above 270 for sure. So whatever I have the most confidence in, like it's above 270, that's generally what I'll shoot, and then I'll just work on making sure my sight marks are dead on to the tee, and making sure that I know my rangefinder. I mean, because there's almost zero room for error in that class now, and when you're aiming at a 12 ring at 50 yards, I mean, then your sight mark's not exactly on, or you don't range it exactly right, or whatnot, and if you're a quarter yard off and you bobble a little bit and break in the 6 o'clock part of the 12, and you're already don't have enough, go-go juice on the sight mark, you're going to be out of it into an 8. So whatever you have the most consistent or the most confidence in as far as your setup goes, I would try to stay, above 270, 280, somewhere around there, and then making sure your sight tape is dialed.
Perfect. So this question right here from Dave Foote is awesome. Look, shooting at Jesse's level for as long as he has, this is something that I actually talked with Levi about like last year. And so Jesse has had the privilege, that would be one word for it, but the privilege of shooting in some of the most competitive groups the sport might have ever seen, with some of the most competitive people the sport has ever seen, and some of the nicest and some of the not nicest. So anyway, here comes the question. Dave Foote, great question. How do you feel the quality of the group of people shooting in your group affects how well you shoot yourself?
Well, I would say that depends on the quality of mental training that you've been doing sometimes to block some of this stuff out.
Right.
There's definitely been some interesting groups I've shot in, especially on a field course, because you're out there for a long time, and it's just a group of 4 guys all day long together. And man, I've had quite some experiences. It can either make for a long day, or it can make for a fun day. I'll put it that way. But it's one of those things to where a lot of times you got to fend for yourself and stand your ground, because there are some times where you have to do that, and you have every right to do that. And sometimes it's like everyone's out there for themselves, and that's okay. I get it. There are other groups there are other people that are just not out there for themselves and are, more cordial and stuff like that. So,
right.
And we all kind of know who those, we all know how the day's going to go. I'm not singling anybody out, but I take it as a good time regardless. And I just, like, the guys have been around for a long time. We all know each other, and so it's just kind of like a joke, in the background, I guess. And I think we all have a good time regardless of what group we're in. But it's just kind of, some groups are just more interesting than others. But you definitely, it can get a little bit if you're not used to it. So say you was an up-and-comer coming into the ranks or whatever, and it's your first pro tournament, and you get put on a target with this more interesting group, it's gonna throw you for a little curve sometimes.
Nope.
No, I'm not saying that, like, I don't mean to say this in a bad way. I'm not saying like this to scare people away from joining the pro ranks or whatever. And
Oh,
I don't think anyone would ever, no matter who it was, treat a newcomer that way coming into the pro ranks. So, but I could see where it would throw some people a curveball if they just kind of walked into that, and you know what I mean.
oh yeah.
Like,
Well, it's no different than any other sport. Look, man. I mean, I've played pickup games with actual NBA players, and if you don't think basketball is a contact sport, you're wrong. And if you're going to play with that level of athlete, you better be expecting some elbows to the chest and the stomach and the
yeah,
kidney. They're going. That's how the game goes. So, translating that over to archery, of course, Jesse Broadwater's not going to elbow you in the chest. However, these guys are shooting for a lot of money, and they're adults, and they're allowed to have adult disagreements and dialogues. And I will just say that I have seen Jesse Broadwater shoot a 560 field round when he was happier than a pig in slop. He was happy-go-lucky all day long. I've also seen Jesse shoot 560 field rounds when I'm not sure he said 4 words all day.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, he was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to the house.
Well,
I'm done.
I remember. I don't know. It's like 2 years ago, I think. Pretty sure that our group was discussing one arrow call for at least a half an hour on one target, and the whole range was mad at us because, you know, a certain person wanted this arrow called, and no one no one agreed with it, and there's definitely rules and stuff you got to follow and everything, and guidelines of how this process works. But yeah, it was quite a long time on this one target, and that shouldn't be how it is. But
Sometimes when you're shooting for that kind of money, that's how it is. All right, last question. The homie Robbie Surface out at Ace Social Circle archery shop out there in Georgia, one of our favorites. He would just like a quick overview of your torque tuning process. And start to finish, let her rip. And I'm going to go change this blind so I don't get LASIK surgery on my left eye.
all right, so torque tuning basically is using. You can do it. You can do it a couple different ways. You can use your sight extension length and your rest, moving your rest back and forth to try to find a sweet spot where your bow is more forgiving, no matter how you torque the handle of the bow. So the way I do it, it's very simple. Like if it's indoor season and you're just shooting at 20 yards and that's all you got, so you'll shoot at 20 yards, get your bow sighted in, and then you'll literally all you do is draw back the bow and just torque it one way, hold the bow torqued, re-aim it in the middle and everything, but you're going to shoot the bow with, whether it be thumb pressure or twisting it this way, one way or the other. Not enough to where you're going to derail the bow. I would say, like the way I explain it is like if you're shooting a 30-inch stabilizer, maybe torque it to where the tip of that stabilizer is only off course by inch and a half or 2 inches or so. You don't want to really crank on it. You're going to derail the bow. So sight it in, draw it back, twist it, re-aim it, shoot it, and then you can twist it the other way, re-aim it, and shoot it. And if it hits the way that you torque the bow, if it hits the way that your front stabilizer was pointed, that way you torqued it, you need to move your rest back some. If it hits the opposite way, then you need to move your rest forward some. It's literally, that's all there is to it. Now, you can get into like sight extension length. That has something to do with it also, but generally you're going to have that already set to where your peep to scope alignment's good and everything. You're not going to want to mess with that. I never, I get that set and I never mess with that. But that's all it is. And you can make your bow to where you can twist that thing either way, and it'll still pretty much hit the exact same spot. So it just builds a lot of forgiveness in the bow. And it's not saying that you're going to purposely torque the bow, but there's certain whatever. If your hand's sweating more one shot than the other, if you're shooting up and downhill and you got your bow weighted a certain way, it's twerking on it just naturally. There's all kinds of stuff that can come into play if it's windy and you get hit with a gust of wind, and your release breaks right at the time that your bow twerks. It's just a way to build forgiveness into there. And I definitely think that everyone should take the time to do it because I've shot setups before. When I first ran onto it, this was like years ago. I mean, I was shooting a setup to where when I twerked it at 20 yards, I was hitting about 5 inches difference both ways. So I had like a 10-inch variance, depending on how I twerked it, and stumbled on, moving a rest back and everything. And I was blown away at how more forgiving it made it left and right.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll save the story when I asked you that question back when I was in Klamath Falls, Oregon, on why you shoot that long overdraw rest. But just to kind of elaborate on this torque tuning thing, at what distance do you torque tune your outdoor rigs?
I would say like most times I'll do it at like 50 yards, and not really for any reason. That's just kind of like where but honestly, like I shoot the same bow from indoors to outdoors, so it's pretty much already torque tuned. So just whatever distance I decide to walk out and start at or whatever that day. But I mean, I've tried at 50, 70, 100, it doesn't, and it should be, really close at all distances. So it doesn't really matter, just wherever you feel comfortable with doing it.
Boom. And yes, folks, you want to see another level of forgiveness. There is definitely magic in torque tuning. Well, all right, Jesse, I really appreciate it. I know that this is a different kind of time right now in the history of archery, especially for pros. The pig's fine, Jesse. The pig is just fine.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you coming on. We should do this again. I know right now you have there's a lot of things going on with you and the sport in general. And for those that are doing this for a living, this has got to be a stressful time. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right, let everybody know where they can keep up with Jesse Broadwater and his pet pigs worldwide adventures.
Yeah, just search my name on Facebook. I got a Facebook page, Jesse Broadwater, and then Instagram's the same thing, at Jesse Broadwater.
Simple as that. Hashtag the Freak Show. All right, everybody, that's Jesse Broadwater right there. He is easily one of the nicest guys the sport ever has to offer, and he can shoot a bow pretty good as well. So it is definitely going to be entertaining to see what happens when all this stuff kicks off. We hope everybody out there stays safe. We look forward to seeing everybody. We don't know when, but we look forward to seeing everybody soon. And look, just be safe out there. No licking doorknobs. If you're already a window licker, then you're on your own. But stay away from the doorknobs and just be safe out there, everybody. Take care of yourself. You guys know the drill. We want to hear from you, not about you. And as always, love, peace, and chicken grease. See ya.
Yeah.